Last week, while I was getting ready for summer guests, I decided to try the popular rug cleaning method of spreading baking soda, letting it do its revitalizing magic, and then vacuuming. Did this do the job the internet raved about? But it did do a job on my vacuum cleaner, which lost all suction. Even after replacing the vacuum bag and all the filters, the unit had maybe a fourth of its power before I'd hear a pop and all the suction would be lost again. Now, this vacuum cleaner wasn't particularly cheap, and I don't want to buy a new one. I've got more guests coming and more vacuuming to do. So can I get this thing back to its original sucking glory? Let's give it a try. It turned out while I was vacuuming up all that baking soda, the third-party bag I was using in the unit failed, leaked, and deposited baking soda all over the inside. Everything was contaminated, including the HEPA filter. In fact, when I turned the machine on, a big puff of baking soda would blow out of the exhaust, which told me the issue was not contained to the bag compartment, but had moved all the way through to the motor. Not good. Fortunately, I love taking things apart to see how they work and how they're designed. Initially, there are just 5 T20 screws securing the outer shell. Just like working on cars, I find the trim work to be the most difficult to deal with. It usually fastens with a combination of clips and tabs. You want to take care not to force anything, as the plastic is usually brittle. I like to use plastic prying tools when possible. If I need more persuasion, I'll wrap metal tools like screwdriver blades in a few turns of painter's tape to keep from marring the surface. You still have to be careful, but the chances of scratching are somewhat limited. With a little patience, the shell and perimeter band lift off easily. The next part to tackle is the motor housing. I want to completely dismantle this unit for cleaning, as I'm certain the baking soda contamination runs deep. Again, a combination of plastic pry tools and a T20 driver get the job done. There's 3 screws in the motor housing cover, 2 of which are hidden beneath the power and cord retraction buttons. One of those hidden screws will cause more work for me in a few minutes. It's just a matter of popping some tabs and freeing the cover. Patience is key. If it's not coming off, resist the urge to just pull hard. Of course, this wasn't the motor housing cover, but the control board mounted above it. It seemed like the back housing needed to get popped off in order to free the housing cover. Finally, the cover is off and the guts are exposed. I was a little concerned about the cord recoil design. My fear was that the whole thing would just spring open and unwind when I removed the cover, but to my delight, the system is beautifully engineered into a self-contained unit that I can just lift right out. The extent of the baking soda infiltration is evident, making its way into the motor housing, the motor windings, the dampening material. It's everywhere. Time to clean things up. It became obvious just how much baking soda was in this machine. Sadly, I didn't get it on camera, but the motor rolled over when I set it on the floor and a pile of baking soda poured out of it. I did snap a pic. I just used compressed air along with a small brush to clean up the residue. I considered washing everything as well, but decided against it, as then I'd have to remove all the electronics and make sure everything was dry before reassembling. Just not worth it. The dampening material was really packed and contaminated. I considered attempting to take the motor apart for a deeper cleaning, but it looked like it was molded together and I didn't want to risk damage. The cage fan inside rotated freely and I didn't feel any grit in the bearings, so again, I decided to let it be. Time to reassemble. First, the motor dampening material. It was nicely cut and formed to fit neatly between the ribs of the compartment. The rear of the motor is supported by an assembly that allows it to vibrate without transferring all the vibration to the outer housing. Nice design. There's also a rubberized front ring that looks like it provides both a seal as well as some vibration dampening. Next comes the gasket for the motor housing. I did wash this off with water as well as dry it with compressed air just to try to get the best seal possible. Then the cord retraction system is slotted in. It fits nicely on the slotted stands and a nice snap as the tabs lock in. The electrical is connected to the motor as well as a quick test of the retraction system. All good. The dampening material is applied to the motor housing cover and it's fit into place. Excuse the big head in the way. One more test to make sure nothing is binding. The control board has some sort of vacuum sensor with a tube that connects it to a port on the top of the part. Off camera, I pulled that tube and blew it out with compressed air. A cloud of baking soda was removed. Then I reattached the hose and fitted the part to the machine, taking care to align and engage the electrical connector in the back. I believe this connection runs power to a distribution board that controls the running lights in the bottom of the unit. Various parts were reinstalled and the two hidden screws are driven home, after which the power and retractor buttons are popped in place. Sometimes there's those little gotchas where you realize there's most definitely an order to the way things go together. I got the back part of the outer shell popped on and I was happy that it went on easily because it was a bit of a pain to get off. It was then that I realized that the back casing needed to go on before the electronics housing because there's a channel in the back case that accepts matching grooves in the housing. So I had to remove the two actuator buttons as well as the 3 fasteners so I could fit the parts properly. Fortunately, I didn't have to backtrack too many steps and was becoming an expert at installing those buttons. I did, however, forget something. Did you catch it? The outer band was a bit finicky to install. It snaps in, but as I found out, is ultimately held in place by the top cover, which was fitted next. Again, a finicky bit of trim that you just need to play with until everything aligns proper and snaps into place. After installing the final 4 fasteners that I started the adventure with, I realized I was left with 1 extra fastener. Never a good feeling. Fortunately, I remembered that pesky hidden screw, so one more time with the recoil button removal, install the screw and replace the button. I also then replaced the pre-filter material as well as the bag holder. Remember that vacuum tube that I cleaned out a while ago? Well, that connects to the cover ending at this hole. On the underside is the connection point. I made sure to blow this channel out with compressed air as well. It was full of baking soda. Once that was clear, I installed the cover. I installed a new primary filter and bag. A About bags. Here I have two bags. One is an OEM bag and the other is a third-party, cheaper bag. There's a very noticeable difference in the quality of the bags. Not only is the OEM bag a bit larger, it's also made of a thicker material. Then there's the seal. The OEM seal is a pliable rubber that deforms and springs back into shape. The third-party seal is a bit stiff, more like thin plastic. When deformed, it slightly holds that deformation, which seems detrimental to a sealing device. After what I just experienced, the third-party bags are out. The OEM bags are a bit more expensive, but I've never had an issue with them, and that makes them worth the cost. Moment of truth? This thing sucks! Well, that was fun. I got to see how my vacuum cleaner was designed and assembled. I got it back in working order and saved wasting a bunch of money on a new one. Now, I've been thinking about doing a new segment on this channel that's just about taking things apart and putting them back together again, just to see what's inside. Ever since I was a little kid, I've loved doing that, and I wasn't always successful at getting things back together again. You can just ask my dad about that. Does that seem like something that'd be of interest to any of you? Let me know down in the comments. In the meantime, I guess I'll just take a look around here and see what else I can take apart. Until next time, I'm mainejason. Get out there and give it a try.